We're going to dive into a scenario that honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a disaster movie. But here's the scary part. It's frighteningly plausible. What if, all of a sudden, the world's oil supply just stopped?
No, really, just think about that for a second. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, you're getting ready for your day, but overnight, the invisible engine that powers literally everything in our civilization has just seized up. So what would actually happen?
Well, the answer is kind of shocking, especially how fast it all unravels. We're not talking months or years for things to get bad. The world as we know it, it could be completely unrecognizable in just 7 days.
And look, let's be super clear about this. This is not some far-fetched Hollywood plot, okay? We're not talking about aliens landing or a giant asteroid.
No, this is a very real scenario, one that's totally grounded in real-world geopolitics and economics. It's a vulnerability that exists right now, today, which makes it this constant underlying threat to, well, everything.
So, what could possibly trigger something so catastrophic? You know, the craziest part is the flashpoint isn't some widespread problem. It all comes down to one single, incredibly specific place on the map.
And that right there brings us to what's known as the planet's most important choke point. I want you to think of it like the main artery for the world's entire energy supply. And if that artery gets clogged, the whole system goes into cardiac arrest. It's that serious. And here it is. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. This tiny, narrow strip of water is, and I'm not exaggerating here, the single most important oil route on the planet. Something like a fifth of the entire world's daily oil supply has to pass through this little gap. It's the only way for major producers in the Persian Gulf to get their oil out to the rest of us.
Just to give you a sense of the scale here, we're not talking about thousands of barrels of oil. We're talking millions. Millions of barrels passing through this strait every single day. That's a huge slice of what the entire world uses. It's a staggering amount of energy, all squeezed through one tiny geographical point.
Okay, so what happens if that flow just stops? Let's walk through it. We're going to break down exactly how this crisis would unfold, day by agonizing day. This is the 7-day countdown to a global breakdown.
And believe me, the progression is swift and it is brutal. In just 24 hours, financial panic. 3 days in, the supply chain collapses. And by the time we hit the 1-week mark, we're talking a full-blown global emergency.
All right, let's look at how this builds. In those first 24 hours, the reaction is all financial, but it is absolutely devastating. As soon as the supply is cut, the price of whatever oil is left just skyrockets instantly. And that shockwave of panic, it ripples through the global stock markets, causing a massive crash, because suddenly the value of pretty much every industry is thrown into question. Okay, fast forward just 3 days. Now the crisis moves from the computer screens of traders to your actual life. With no new oil coming in, refineries start shutting down. The gas that's already in the system, it runs out. And it runs out fast. Gas stations close up. Airlines have no jet fuel, so they're forced to ground their planes. The world's ability to move just stops.
And by the end of that first week, the situation is beyond dire. Governments all over the world have no choice but to declare a state of economic emergency. We're talking about things like fuel rationing, maybe even martial law, and a complete shutdown of any business that isn't absolutely essential, all just to save what little fuel is left.
So you're probably asking, what could possibly cause all this? I mean, this isn't a natural disaster. The real threat here comes from something way more unpredictable: the complex and tense world of human geopolitics.
You see, the Strait of Hormuz is a place with immense tension, mainly between the United States and Iran. And this isn't new. We've seen flare-ups here for decades. The U.S. keeps a huge naval presence there to make sure ships can pass safely. But Iran, because of where it's located, has the power to disrupt or even close that passage, and that creates this constant potential for conflict.
And this quote really captures the razor's edge everyone is on. If one wrong step is taken, it could be not just a path, but the beginning of a full-scale war. A single mistake, just one wrong move from either side, and that could be the spark that ignites the whole powder keg. And it wouldn't just stay there. It could easily escalate into a major war that shuts down the strait and kicks off that 7-day countdown we just talked about. Now, I know a conflict in some narrow waterway halfway across the world can feel really distant, right? But the ripple effects from this, they would reach everyone, everywhere. And that's the crucial part, understanding why this matters directly to you. So, let's ask it plainly. If this choke point actually closed,
who gets hit the hardest? The answer really shows you just how connected our global economy is.
While the nations at the highest risk are the ones that depend the most on imported oil. We're talking about huge economies like Europe and pretty much all of Asia. Their industrial engines would just grind to a halt. But maybe the most devastating impact would be felt in developing countries because they just don't have the financial cushion to handle a price shock like that.
And for regular people, ordinary folks all around the world, whether in London or Lagos or Lima, the result is exactly the same. It means a deep, personal, and very immediate crisis.
And that pain breaks down into a few key things. First, you'd get massive inflation because the cost of making and shipping everything would just explode. Then comes mass unemployment as businesses start to collapse. And all of that just combines into this general state of crisis, where even getting basic necessities becomes a real struggle. Which brings us to the big final question, right? We've laid out the whole scenario, what triggers it and what happens next. But how real is all this? Are we actually close to this danger? Or is this more of a really serious warning about how fragile our system is?
The answer isn't simple at all. It really all depends on this delicate dance of power and diplomacy in one of the most volatile places on Earth. The vulnerability is absolutely real. The consequences we've talked about are crystal clear. So the only question left is, how close are we to the edge? What do you think?